Hello, Hangover Dragons. My name is Filip Hajzer. I'm sound designer at the Farm 51, and let me tell you today about sound for our latest game, Get Even. We created the game in collaboration with a well-known composer Olivier Derivière, and I will show you based on examples how many amazing qualities we managed to provide for our audio experience in Get Even. As you know, Olivier is experienced in creating interactive soundtracks, so let's see how it helped the experience of the game in general. And I will explain the title of the presentation in the end. So let's start with what we, as an audio team, started when producing the game and planning the production. We were brainstorming about the game itself, as it's very important in planning the audio production. So we highlighted some key features to story and gameplay, so we can plan our strategy in audio production. And basically the story was, let's go through it in short, briefly. There are two characters, main characters in our story, Red and Black, and they are using virtual reality to explore each other's memories and solve a mystery of a kidnapping. The kidnapped girl is a relative of one of the characters. That's why we choose family values as one of the highlights of the story. And then there is also a little bit of fear, but not too much. This screenshot may be the only jump scare in the whole game, despite the fact that you can feel the tension throughout the whole game. So this is our highlights, story related. And for gameplay elements, we had shooting, exploration, investigation. Maybe some of you experienced yesterday's presentation by Basia about those amazing story assets that supported the investigation in the game. Beautiful stuff. And some puzzles. So after we listed those key elements that we need to support, we were able to define what will be our aim for the whole game's sound. And this is the list of our main goals that we try to achieve with the sound. So the first point here goes for the fact that the story mostly takes place in the virtual reality. This is not a virtual reality game, but it tells a story of virtual reality. So to represent this, you may call it virtual reality. We decided that we don't want to play non-diegetic music, as it doesn't have a source in the world and can break the immersion of being in really advanced high-tech simulation. So that was our really big concern, and it sounds easy, but implementation of that concept was extremely hard. Second point is related to the fact that Get Even plot is a very complex Memento style plot, and we cannot afford to misdirect the player with some false info in sound. So we have to be sure that the sound information that we are providing to player is helping him to connect the plot elements rather than misdirect him and make him not understand what is actually happening in the game. The last 2 points, in my opinion, should always be there. If you are creating audio for a game, you have to remember that you are creating a game, and you should always focus on player interaction because this is not a movie, and you want to be as interactive as possible. And we had Olivier on board, who is a master at that, so we had to do it, basically. Yeah, and the connection to emotions, it's basically what sound is for, so the last one is obvious. Okay, so let's discuss what were the methods and maybe technology that we used to make these goals come true. So, hybrid interactive music, what it is? It's Olivier's specialty. Hybrid is between the real-time generated music, which was popular on older consoles that weren't able to play waveforms. On those consoles, all the soundtracks were generated real-time via built-in synthesizers and MIDI protocol. So the hybrid is between that kind of music and regular interactive music known in the games today that are playing scripted waveforms based on player interaction. And fun fact, you can see a little lectureception in here because I'm showing you a screenshot of the lecture on the lecture. But this screenshot is Olivier's music system for Remember Me, as revised by someone else, Simon Ashby, and you can see that these systems can really go far, and for someone who is analyzing this, they can be really hard to even understand. Another tool that we used a lot is indirect narrative sound. This is a pretty common idea in games. Basically, it's a story sound that is not voiceover, because voiceover is telling story directly. It's a sound that is helping you to mostly sounds of things that you cannot see. So for Dead Space example, you will be able to see creatures to hear creatures that you cannot really see, and this is supporting the story for you. And in Get Even we have lots of these kinds of sounds. For example, on one of the levels you have exploration level in one of the memories, and you can hear a breathing machine from the hospital telling you that you are actually in the simulation and your body is in a really bad condition somewhere else. And we have the clock sound that I will introduce in the examples. Okay, so this is the technology we used. The game is based on Unreal 3 because we did a prototype on Unreal 3 and didn't switch in the end for Unreal 4. And we also, of course, needed some good audio middleware. So we decided to use Wise, of course, because of its MIDI features and general tempo sync to make the ideas come true, like synchronizing non-diegetic sounds with diegetic. You really need a technology like this because otherwise coders' time would be too expensive to make it work. And also it has the Auro 3D technology that helped enhance the headphone experience, as we want to make the simulation of the simulation feel as real as possible. Plus the Auro technology helped us to use this is, by the way, how many sound guys today here? Sound designers and composers, put them up. Okay, there are some people interested. Okay. So yeah, the Oro 3D also helped us to use Ambisonics Recordings of music. Some of the sound guys may know what I'm talking about. It's a technique of recording that helps you reproduce the 3D environment of the original recording. So some of the Olivier songs performed by Brussels Philharmonie Orchestra were recorded by ambisonic mics, and we were able to represent the 3D space of the concert hall inside the game using Wise and Oro. Fun stuff. So another idea to bring the music in a diegetic space, right, and make it kind of rotate with the player to make it stick with the 3D world of the game. Okay, so that's it for the tools. Let's finally get to some examples. First example I want to show you requires me to explain some of the character perspectives we have in game. So there is black and red, and they are both exploring each other memories via simulation. Plus we have this one place called Asylum, which is supposed to be reality for black, but really isn't. But we don't want to spoil it, so we present it in a way that it seems like this is not a simulation. But it is, of course, this is a simulation as well. Okay, so first, basic example of how you can represent the different perspectives. On the first video on the left, we have black in red's memory, and video on the right is red in his own memory. And you can see there are character stills somewhat dissolving on the screen, and on both levels the characters are represented in the same way, but voiceovers are completely different to remind the player that this is another kind of environment. Let's take a quick listen, as those are short examples.
She is. I'll find her. I promise.
You did this, didn't you?
What? How could you even say that?
Your obsessions, Robert. With work.
So you can hear voiceover completely not processed, dry voiceover. And on the second example,
How do I have? Everything's in place for the transfer. I'm just waiting on the ambulance.
This all seems a little drastic, Laura. Are you sure this is the best decision?
It'll be safe in my care. I need to get to the bottom of what happened.
I think what you need is sleep.
you probably heard that weird processing on the voiceover that we are trying to do this. So okay, this this is a basic example that requires no advanced implementation. You just process the voiceover and that's it. What can we do else to support the different character perspectives here? Here we have a bigger example of changing almost everything on the level according to the perspective. So now I will play 2 videos on the first level of the game. Black is trying to rescue the kidnapped girl, and this is first level of the game. And then we revisit this level as Red, who is trying to revise the memory. So when you play as Black, there is a lot of tension. Let's take a listen to the example. These are some interesting things to consider when listening now. So you hear a realistic ambient around you. One second. Let's just improve the quality on this one before we listen. Okay. As we hear this narrative sound of the clock, all the ambience is being almost muted. Let's say side chained for the sound guys.
Voices. Must be one floor up.
Okay, so let's analyze this. First point, some of the level ambience is pitched so it will match the music key, which is a nice idea. And the drone intensity and the intensity of the music in general is all based on one parameter that is equal to the distance of the girl, and this concept is pretty bulletproof in a way that if the level designers decide to readjust the whole level, the music still works, right? Because it's based on the parameter to the kidnapped girl. So wherever the level designers decide to place that girl, when the player is approaching, he will always be listening to music as it should be. And later I will show you some behind-the-scenes invoice of how the side chaining was created actually for this level. Yeah, we will discuss this later, the side chaining, as this is a pretty complex idea. So let's compare this to how this level looks on Red's campaign. Again, some points of what to focus on while listening. Let's take a listen. So you can hear the voiceover is processed. There's almost...
The simulation parameters stable, Dr. Ramsey. You are free to continue with the review.
Shooting affects the music in a major way. Now you can hear the combat track on the bass line. Skills also change music.
Warping script active, Dr. Ramsey.
Good. Okay, let's follow the trail. See what really happened.
And enabling this engram restored the whole ambience back to black state, right? So when we started this level, the ambience was muted. There is no room tones basically. This is supporting the fact that Red is not reliving this memory, he's revising an audition of Black's memory, so he's basically revising a file here. So he's conscious of the simulation and a little bit distance to it, right? That's why the ambience is muted and there are no room tones. But as soon as you enable this engram that lets you proceed through the level, all the ambience comes back. And you heard at the end that the music progressed, so it's arranged in a really, really complex way that changes with the player progress, with the player actions, with the NPC actions, and all of those actions have different effects, right? Shooting, sonar, using these engrams and stuff. Okay, nice example. So now, nap time for non-sound guys and fun time for sound guys. A little behind the scenes of what happened in Wise and how Olivier did set up the pumping on the first level in the game. Using Wise Meter, a great tool that helps you create sidechaining effects in Wise. Here you can see that on the meter you set up a parameter that will be changing with the levels on that meter. So we define this parameter and then we set up this parameter on a bus that we call pumped, and every ambience that we want to pump throughout the game needs to be sent on that bus. And you see voice low pass and volume is affected by this parameter. Then we want to create a trigger sound because we don't want to use the actual clock sound, as it will change. In the first example, you notice that with the player progress, the clock got more frequent, but it also pitched up and the reverb was shortened with the level progress. So we cannot use a sound like that for a trigger because it will change and it will change the effect of the pump. That's why we create a controlled sound that in this case is a synth or sine tone with some attack, decay, sustain, release settings. Defined with another parameters that can be manipulated to change the depth of the pumping, because you may also notice that the pumps got deeper and deeper with level progress. And then here you can see it's the sine tone on the MIDI track, and you can create some different patterns of this sign to create different patterns for pumping. And here I forgot what this parameter was about. It's bass volume for, this is basically for enabling the pumping. So you have one parameter that makes the pump deeper and deeper throughout the level, and it's basically the volume of the sign, right? And here is a setup of 3 meters. We ended up with setup like this, and one meter is for pumping, and another meter is for pushing the ambience louder. I will show you an example of this, hopefully, if I manage to. And here's the setup of switching between those meters, basically by bypassing them. And that's the screenshot for the synth that was happening on the first level. It got more intense, not with the filter on it, but actually adding new layers of pre-recorded synth. Some fun facts to support the pumping. We didn't use almost any 2D sounds, as pumping this ambience, 2D ambience would feel not real, basically, and it would feel like just another element to the music, and we wanted to make it feel like the world is, the simulation is breaking down, so you stop hearing the world around you. That's why we created many 3D sounds throughout the level instead of 2D ambience. And here you have an example. You can see the rooms on the asylum level. All the rooms have 4 3D emitters for room tones to make the sound stick with the world and make the player feel that the world around him is rotating with the sound, right? Okay, some more examples. This is a good one. How long? Can't see. Okay, here are some highlights of what we managed to do here. And to create this level, this was really an adventure. Let's take a listen. 2 minutes, okay, we managed.
Red! Hey! Why is everyone loose?
The patients must have their exercise, Mr. Black. Now move along.
So you already can hear some diegetic music far away coming from the speaker, piano, right? We add some sounds of activity, narrative sounds when player enters those rooms. Something happens and we introduce the idea that there are people there, right? Again, narrative sound of someone banging. This video is basically a walkthrough of a level with encounters missing. Interesting fact. You see the radio here. It was requested by the audio team to justify the diegetic music, and this piano track that you heard from the level beginning is sourced in this speaker. So you see another speaker that now is related to gameplay and plays another part of the song in sync. That was the drums.
What will they do? The party! The party!
You surprise me, Mr. Black. Temperance? Humility? Perhaps there is hope for you yet.
And you start to hear first non-diegetic sound, the buzzing, the synth. And now just everybody starts to go crazy and bang on the door with the rhythm of the music. You also hear surveillance camera beeps are in sync.
Enjoying this, Mr. Black?
Some amazing voice acting for you.
Let's talk about our first lead, Mr.
What do you know?
The question, Mr. Black, is what do you...
So you can see pretty complex setup on this level, and this really requires your involvement into the production. While creating mechanics like this, Olivier was really communicating a lot with all the teams. You may say that despite the fact that Olivier was throughout all this production, Olivier was in Paris. He visited us a couple of times, but despite the fact that he was in Paris, he was one of the most present persons in the studio. He was able to, Skype you and email some people while Skyping you, and then contact with those people, direct message some other people, and basically making the whole company concerned about his requests and his plans for the levels, right? That's why we get speakers for in-source music, and that's why we managed to bind all of this with gameplay, and you saw that some of the parts are triggered with buttons and stuff like this. Okay, I'm supposed to go to questions sections now. Maybe let me play one last example and we'll go to that. Because I just want to quickly introduce the idea of morphing from diegetic sounds to non-diegetic music, and listen to this. This example does not require a big knowledge of Wise or some implementation. This is just creativity and one good VST plugin. And story. Music is initiated with the train sound that is passing by through this level, and initially there was no train on this level, and there was no music with that. And the discussion was, Olivier, what about the music on Shell Fog? Well, what about the train? What train? Train to start the music. Okay, we don't understand you, but here's your train.
This memory looks to be unstable. Disrupt it as little as possible, Black. Don't go in all guns blazing.
So it morphed from the sound done with a plugin. The sound of killing NPCs is ducking everything with the music, ambience whatsoever, because you are not supposed to kill people here. Okay. So yeah, I had some more examples of this, but let's skip them. This is interesting. You can see this in gameplays. Check out this. One last thing I will mention that you don't want to forget on audio production for a game is you have to bind the story together, right? And in a complex story like this in Get Even, we did a lot of ideas like this. Here you can see black unconscious with a little speaker on his right, and we were, when player saw something like this, we were playing the music from other levels in this speaker to justify why he was hearing the music on the previous level in the first place. Also, same goes for laptops that were somewhere around the level. We were introducing the music from previous levels to remind the player that this is in fact connected with another memory. We have this dark room, and that player uses to revise evidence found on levels. And on every board here represents a level in our game, and we were also playing music from that level to instantly remind player that when he approaches the board, he can hear the pop song. So, oh right, this is that level with the pop song, right? And we used a lot of we reused a lot of voiceovers. So during cutscenes and some encounters, you would often in Get Even you can hear voiceovers from other levels, just playing somewhat in your head again to remind you about the connections that what happened on different levels. Okay. So one last example. I really want to play you. Maybe let's play this after the questions. I will show you just the summary of what we stated as the golden rules of treating your game as a whole product. Do all this and you should be fine. It really sounds easy, but yeah, the first one is a big one. You need to communicate all the time with everybody. And the last one is a big one, because we wouldn't get this much of an influence on the game if we didn't spend a lot of time at the very beginning to prove ourselves to the team. So when we started production, we were working on a Gamescom demo, which consisted of the first 3 levels, and we really maxed out those levels. So coders were like, on the first month of our work, they were like, oh my god, wise integration, why we have to do this, who needs wise? And after 2 months, they were like, oh, this really might do something. And after 3 months, they were like, okay, good work, guys. Okay, nice job. So was it worth it? Of course it was. We broke some new grounds for audio. We have some nominations and awards and some good opinions in the press about the sound, which doesn't happen very often if you read reviews of games, that they mention sound in the reviews. Okay, thank you very much, and let's hear for some questions if you have them.
So, as Filip said, questions time. Okay, we have a first question.
First of all, man, that was fucking awesome. I want
Thanks.
to play this game right now, and
Do.
I had orgasm right now, and my question is that I assume that before Get Even, your approach to sound design was like traditional sound design in games, but how this approach affected your process, how many people were there working on it, on the sound, and were there much more problems with this approach? And well, how it affected the whole process of sound designing?
So the team was Olivier as a composer and a kind of lead advisor for sound production. Me, Chris Grant, another sound designer, David Ginot, a third French sound designer, and we had one extra guy for voiceover integration and some additional help with SFX. And yeah, the problems. You need to really work extra hours and organize your workflow within the team. And after you are sure that your workflow is stable and you you know exactly how many requests you need from other teams, because you don't want to have requests that are not necessary. So you plan your work extensively and you make sure which is the least amount of parameters and meshes and whatever you need for the sound to work, and then request it, and then request it again and 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 again.
And how long did the production take?
We were on the audio production for almost 2 years, and the game, Artur, how long? Almost 4 years.
Nice.
So we jumped on the last 2 years, and we're just crunching from day one. Really.
Oh. but the effect is like awesome. Like, man, I don't know what to say. But
good to
congratulations,
hear.
really.
Thanks. I'm happy you like it. Play the game. I hope I didn't manage to spoil too much of the story. They are laughing at me because I spoiled everything.
Well, at least I'm not going to be frightened by the puppet.
The puppet one. Yeah, sorry for the loud jump scare. I didn't know it will be this loud for a hangover time.
Okay. Any other question? We still have time.
I have a question.
Oh no, not this guy. He will ask the question that he knows the answer to, and I don't know. Let's do this.
It's not that. You skipped the example.
Of voiceovers?
On the cemetery. Could you play it?
Okay. So voiceovers at the end, because... so let's go back. Yes, I could, and I will. Here you go. So this was another example of blending the diegetic stuff with non-diegetic music. We have a ringtone that is leading player throughout the level, so you hear a phone ringing and you know where to follow, as this is a dark labyrinth of a level. And it's a shooting level on the cemetery, and the soundtrack is this.
Listen, I know you're angry, but the wheels are in motion, and there's nothing either of us can do to stop them. I can't have anyone standing in my way, especially not you.
I'm starting to remember. I was looking for Grace. I think Rose had her. I was trying to stop her.
I didn't want it to be this way, but you're now liability. Security! Make it painless. Goodbye, Black. I'm sorry.
So you can hear it's already in sync with the ringtone, the music. Now adaptive part. Spotted. Now I will get spotted. And now combat segment, shortly. Yes, this is a pop song on the cemetery shooting level, and yes, it is fully interactive with your actions. And yes, it makes sense to the story and really supports the fact of... I don't want to spoil you. Play the game and try to figure out why the song is there, because there is a reason why the song is there. I didn't hear you, but I agree.
Okay, well...
we have one question, so let's
up,
bring it.
but last question. Okay.
Well, thank you for all your examples and for the game. I have a question about the last video. You told that most the music is in 3D, not 2D.
Yes.
And this example, how it's made, this string, ringtone, voice, in the beginning, is it 3D or 2D?
No, no. The 3D parts were orchestral recordings that were recorded in Ambisonics, and other than that, we placed 3D emitters like the speakers on the Asylum level, or we just went complete non-diegetic music that is 2D, like in this example, which is justified story-wise.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So, do I have like 1 minute, 1.5 for an example?
Yeah, the last example, I think that the other guys that are waiting can sit and see something that they missed, actually.
Sorry for taking so long, but this may be also interesting for people.
Yeah,
yes?
Go ahead. One last thing. And
okay, so we spoke about treating your game as a whole. You have sound effects and music. How about something interesting about voiceovers? So here is a nice idea of recording voiceovers. Put your actors in the same room. This is how they work for theater. This is how they work for movies. This why they should work otherwise for video games. Often in video game production you record one actor, then on the next day the other actor comes and plays to the acts to the recording of the previous actor. For key dialogues in our game, we managed to, with a little bit of logistics, we managed to put the actors in the one booth and record them as they were acting to each other, and the effect is much more emotional. Listen to this. And it's also the credits scene, so big spoiler. And we are not timing those dialogues. The timing is the original timing of actors, and that's the point of recording them together. Okay, so you get the basic idea. Let's not make it even longer.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it was Filip Hajzer from the Farm 51. Thank you very much for this amazing presentation.
Thanks, guys. Play the game.